The man who killed my wife sat 15 feet away from me, and I was supposed to stay calm. Daniel Mercer looked smaller than I remembered from the trial. Prison had hollowed him out, grayer, thinner, eyes that didn't quite land on anything. He wore an orange jumpsuit and kept his hands folded on the table like a man practicing how to look reformed. I wanted to break every bone in those hands. "Mr. Whitmore," the parole board chair said, "you may give your statement." I stood. My legs felt like they belonged to someone else. 18 months of therapy. 18 months of people telling me to let go, move forward, find closure. And here I was in a fluorescent room with plastic chairs, about to beg strangers to keep my wife's killer in a cage. "Her name was Claire," I said.
Claire.
"She was 31 years old." Daniel didn't look at me. He stared at the table. "She was a pediatric nurse. She worked overnight shifts because that's when the kids needed the most comfort. She'd come home exhausted and still make me coffee before I left for work." My voice cracked. I didn't care. March 14th, 11:47 p.m. She was driving home. She stopped at a red light like she was supposed to. Like anyone would. I looked directly at Daniel. He still wouldn't meet my eyes. He ran the light going 53 miles per hour. Blood alcohol twice the legal limit. He walked away with a broken collarbone. She died on impact. The room was silent. Someone on the board was writing something. The scratch of pen on paper felt obscene. "I'm not here to talk about rehabilitation," I said. "I'm here because my wife doesn't get a second chance. She doesn't get parole. She doesn't get to walk out of anywhere. She's in the ground. And every day he breathes is a day she doesn't." I sat down. My hands were shaking. Daniel's lawyer gave a rehearsed speech about model behavior, completed programs, low recidivism risk. I barely heard it. I was counting ceiling tiles, trying not to scream. Then the chair said, "We have one more statement. Elena Mercer." My head snapped up. A woman stood from the back row. Dark hair. Gray blazer. Face like a closed door. Elena Mercer. His ex-wife. She walked to the front of the room and I felt my stomach drop through the floor. Of course she'd be here. Of course she'd defend him. They had a son together. Whatever twisted loyalty survives even after divorce. I braced myself to hear her beg for his release. She turned to face the board. Took a breath. "My name is Elena Mercer. I was married to Daniel for 16 years. We have a son together. I filed for divorce 3 weeks after his conviction." She paused. "I'm here to oppose his release." The room shifted. Daniel's head jerked up. His lawyer's pen stopped moving. I stopped breathing. "I didn't know who I was married to," Elena said. Her voice was steady, but I could see her hands trembling at her sides. "I thought I did. 16 years. You think you know someone after 16 years?" She wasn't looking at Daniel. She was looking at the board, but her words were for everyone. He hid the drinking. He was good at it. Business trips that weren't business trips. Late nights that I didn't question because I trusted him. I trusted him with my son in the car. I trusted him with everything. Her voice hardened. Then a police officer showed up at my door at 1 a.m. and told me my husband had killed a woman. A nurse. 31 years old. Driving home from saving children's lives. She finally looked at Daniel. I sat in that courtroom every day. I watched the evidence. I saw the photos. I listened to the blood alcohol reports and the speed calculations and the impact analysis. And I realized I had slept next to a stranger for 16 years. I had built a life with a man I never knew. Daniel's jaw tightened. He looked like he wanted to speak. His lawyer put a hand on his arm. "My son lost his father that night," Helena said. "Not because Daniel went to prison. Because the father Marcus thought he had never existed. That man was a lie." She turned back to the board. "Daniel Mercer is not reformed. He is the same man he always was. Someone who hides who he really is until it's too late. I do not believe he should be released. I do not believe he has earned that privilege. And I will be back at every hearing for the rest of his sentence to say exactly this." Then she turned and looked directly at me. "Mr. Whitmore." My throat closed. I didn't know Claire. I wish I had. I've read about her. The articles after the accident. The obituary. The things her colleagues said about her. Her eyes were wet but her voice held. "I'm sorry. I know that means nothing. I know it doesn't bring her back or fix what he broke. But I am sorry. For what he did. For what I didn't see. For all of it." She held my gaze for 3 seconds. She walked out of the room. I sat frozen in my plastic chair while the board deliberated. Daniel's lawyer made another appeal. Someone read statistics. None of it registered. All I could see was her face. All I could hear was her voice. I'm here to oppose his release. 20 minutes later, the board announced their decision. Parole denied. Daniel would serve at least 2 more years before his next hearing. His lawyer started talking about appeals. Daniel was let out in handcuffs. People gathered their things and shuffled toward the exits. I didn't move. I was thinking about Elena Mercer, the woman who had every reason to stay silent, to protect whatever was left of her family's dignity, to let the system handle it and keep her head down. She hadn't done any of that. She'd walked into a room full of strangers, stood 10 feet from the man she'd shared a bed with for 16 years and buried him. Needed to know. I stood up and pushed through the doors into the hallway. She was gone. I found her in the parking lot. She was leaning against a silver sedan, arms crossed, staring at nothing. When she heard my footsteps, her whole body tensed. Mrs. Mercer. She looked up. Something flickered across her face. Fear, maybe, or exhaustion. Mr. Whitmore. We stood there in the gray afternoon light, 2 strangers connected by the worst thing that had ever happened to either of us. Why? I asked. She didn't pretend to misunderstand. Because it was true. You didn't have to say it. You didn't have to be here at all. Yes, I did. She uncrossed her arms. Up close, I could see the cracks in her composure, the redness around her eyes, the slight tremor in her hands, the way she held herself like she was bracing for impact. I spent 18 months pretending I was a victim too, she said, telling myself I didn't know, I couldn't have known, it wasn't my fault. And technically that's true. I didn't know. I couldn't have. She looked away. But I married him. I chose him. I brought a child into the world with him. And somewhere in those 16 years, there were signs I didn't want to see. Red flags I explained away because it was easier than asking hard questions. Her voice dropped. Claire is dead because I married a man who could kill someone and I never saw it coming. I have to live with that. The least I can do is make sure he stays where he belongs. I didn't know what to say. I'd spent 18 months hating Daniel Mercer with every cell in my body. I'd never thought about what it would feel like to be tied to him, to have his name, to have his child. Your son, I said. How does he? Marcus doesn't know I'm here. Her jaw tightened. He thinks his father made a mistake. One mistake. He thinks people deserve second chances. And you don't. She met my eyes. Do you? The question hung between us. No. Daniel Mercer didn't deserve a second chance. Claire didn't get one. But standing there looking at Elena, this woman who had just torched what remained of her family to do the right thing, I felt something shift. Not forgiveness. Not even close. But something. Can I buy you a coffee? I asked. I don't know why I said it. The words came out before I could stop them. She stared at me like I'd spoken a foreign language. You want to buy me coffee? I don't know what I want, I admitted. I just know I'm not ready for this conversation to be over. She was quiet for a long moment. The wind picked up and blew a strand of hair across her face. She didn't move to fix it. There's a diner, she finally said. 3 blocks east. Terrible coffee. Decent pie. I'll follow you. She got in her car. I got in mine. And I sat there for a full minute before starting the engine, trying to understand what I was doing. I was about to have coffee with the ex-wife of the man who killed Claire. Claire would have told me I was insane. But Claire wasn't here. And for the first time in 18 months, I wanted to be somewhere. With someone. Even if it made no sense. I started the car and followed her out of the lot. The diner was called Rosie's. Cracked vinyl booths, fluorescent lights. A waitress who looked like she'd been pouring coffee since before I was born. Elena picked a booth in the back corner. I slid in across from her. Neither of us spoke while the waitress filled our cups. Black for me. Cream and sugar for her. The small detail felt strangely intimate, like I'd learned something I wasn't supposed to know. So, she said when the waitress left. What do you want to know? Everything. Nothing. I didn't know where to start. How long did you suspect? I asked. About the drinking. She wrapped her hands around her mug. I didn't. That's the truth even though no one believes it. He traveled for work. Sales. 3 for nights a week sometimes. If he was drinking, he was doing it in hotel rooms in other cities. By the time he got home, he was sober. And you never smelled it on him? Found bottles? Caught him stumbling? She shook her head. He was functional. That's what they call it, right? A functional alcoholic. He functioned perfectly. Until he didn't. I thought about Claire. How well did I really know her? We'd been married 6 years. Together for 8. I knew her favorite song, her coffee order, the way she hummed when she was nervous. But did I know everything? Could she have hidden something that big from me? No. Claire was incapable of deception. She cried during commercials about shelter dogs. She apologized to furniture when she bumped into it. But Elena had probably thought she knew Daniel too. The night it happened, I said. Where were you? Home. With Marcus. He was 13. We were watching a movie, some superhero thing he was obsessed with. I fell asleep on the couch before it ended. Her voice flattened. I woke up to someone pounding on the door. 2 officers. They asked if I was Mrs. Mercer. I said yes. They asked if they could come inside. She stared into her coffee. I thought he was dead. That's what you think when police show up at 1 a.m., right? Car accident. Heart attack. Something. I was already crying before they told me anything. But he wasn't dead. No. He wasn't. She looked up at me. Your wife was. The words landed like stones dropped into still water. They didn't tell me that part right away. They said there had been an accident. That Daniel was in custody. That someone had been hurt. It wasn't until the next morning, after I'd gone to the station, after I'd seen him in a holding cell with a bandage on his shoulder and this look on his face like he still didn't understand what he'd done, that I found out she was dead. What did you do? I went home. I sat in my car in the driveway for an hour. Then I went inside and made Marcus breakfast like nothing had happened. Pancakes. His favorite. Her jaw tightened. I didn't know what else to do. I didn't know how to be a person anymore. So I just kept moving. Breakfast. School drop-off. Laundry. Like if I stopped, I'd fall apart and never put myself back together. I understood that. The mechanical living. The going through motions. After Claire died, I taught classes on autopilot for 3 months. Graded papers without reading them. Ate food without tasting it. Existed without living. When did you decide to leave him? I asked. At the trial. Day 4. They showed the photos. She didn't elaborate. She didn't have to. I'd seen those photos too. The crumpled Honda. The shattered glass. The blood on the steering wheel. I looked at Daniel while the prosecutor was talking. He was sitting there in his suit with his lawyer whispering in his ear, and he looked annoyed, inconvenienced, like this whole thing was a disruption to his schedule. Her voice hardened. That's when I knew. Whatever I thought we had, the marriage, the family, the life, it was built on top of someone who could kill a woman and feel inconvenienced by the paperwork. She finished her coffee in one long swallow. I filed for divorce the next week. Moved here 6 months later. New town. New name. I took back my maiden name, but Marcus kept his. He wanted to. He still sees his father as his father. Yes. Whatever Daniel did, he's still Marcus's dad. I can't take that away from him even if I wanted to. And part of me doesn't want to. Part of me hopes Marcus never becomes as hard as I've had to become. She signaled the waitress for a refill. Your turn. My turn. I just told you the worst night of my life. Fair's fair. I didn't want to talk about it. I never wanted to talk about it. Every therapist, every well-meaning friend, every grief counselor had tried to get me to open up, and I'd given them just enough to make them stop asking. But sitting across from Elena in that cracked vinyl booth, something was different. She already knew. Not the details, but the shape of it. The weight. She'd been carrying her own version for 18 months. I was grading papers, I said. It was a Tuesday. Claire was working the late shift. She usually got home around midnight. I had a stack of essays on The Great Gatsby. I was writing comments in the margins, thinking about how I'd rather be watching TV. I paused. That's what I was doing when my wife died. Correcting comma splices. Elena didn't say anything. Didn't offer comfort or platitudes. Just listened. The call came at 12:30. Unknown number. I almost didn't answer. I thought it was a telemarketer. I could still hear the voice on the other end. Come. Professional. The voice of someone trained to deliver the worst news in the world without flinching. They told me there'd been an accident. They told me which hospital. They didn't tell me she was already dead. I found that out when I got there, and they walked me to a room with a chaplain waiting inside. I stared at the table. I didn't even get to say goodbye. She was gone before I knew anything was wrong. 1 minute I'm correcting essays, the next minute my whole life is over and I didn't even feel it happen. Elena reached across the table. Her hand stopped an inch from mine. Hovered there. Asking permission. I didn't move away. She closed the distance. Her fingers were warm against my skin. We sat like that for a long time. 2 strangers in a diner, connected by violence, saying nothing because there was nothing to say. Finally she pulled back. I should go. Marcus will be home from school soon. Yeah. Okay. She pulled out her wallet. I shook my head. I said I'd buy you coffee. You did. She hesitated. I don't know what this was, but thank you. For listening. For not looking at me like I'm the enemy. You're not the enemy. Not everyone sees it that way. Daniel's family thinks I betrayed him. My own parents think I should have fought harder to keep the marriage together, for Marcus's sake. Some days I feel like I'm standing in the middle of a room where everyone hates me for different reasons. She stood. Goodbye, Mr. Whitmore. Jonah. She paused. Jonah, she repeated, like she was testing how it felt in her mouth. Goodbye, Elena. She walked out. The bell above the door chimed. I watched her through the window as she got in her car and drove away. The waitress came by and refilled my cup. I didn't touch it. I sat there for another hour thinking about Elena Mercer. About the way she'd said my name. About her hand on mine. I should have felt guilty. Claire had been dead for 18 months and I was sitting in a diner thinking about another woman's touch. But I didn't feel guilty. I felt awake. For the first time since the phone call, since the hospital, since the funeral, I felt like I was actually inside my own body again. Like the fog had lifted just enough to see a few feet ahead. And what I saw was terrifying. Because I wanted to see her again. I wanted to see the ex-wife of the man who killed Claire, and I couldn't make that make sense no matter how hard I tried. I told myself I wouldn't reach out. For 3 days I kept that promise. Went to work, taught my classes, graded papers, came home to my empty apartment and sat in the dark thinking about her hands wrapped around that coffee mug. On the 4th day I broke. I found her website through a Google search. Elena Richardson design. Clean portfolio. Minimalist aesthetic. A contact form at the bottom of the page. I stared at that form for 20 minutes. What would I even say? Asterisk hi, I'm the widower of the woman your ex-husband killed. Want to get dinner? Asterisk. I closed the laptop. Opened it again. Closed it. Then my phone buzzed. Unknown number. I almost ignored it. I'd been ignoring most calls since Claire died. But something made me answer. Jonah? Her voice. My chest tightened. Elena. I hope this isn't. I got your number from the victim advocate's office. They keep contact information for, anyway. I wasn't sure if I should call. I'm glad you did. Silence. I could hear her breathing on the other end. I haven't stopped thinking about the diner, she said. About what you told me. About Claire. Me neither. Is that strange? That we can't stop thinking about the worst day of our lives. I think it might be the opposite of strange. I think it might be the first normal thing I felt in 18 months. She laughed, a small, surprised sound. Normal. God. I don't even remember what that word means anymore. Maybe we could figure it out together. The words left my mouth before I could stop them. I held my breath, waiting for her to hang up. There's a park, she said slowly. Riverside. By the old mill. I go there sometimes when Marcus is at school. To think. Tomorrow? 10 o'clock. She hung up. I sat there holding the phone like it might disappear if I set it down. The park was empty when I arrived. October had stripped most of the leaves from the trees. The river moved slow and gray beneath the footbridge. I stood at the railing watching the water, wondering what the hell I was doing. Then I heard footsteps behind me. She was wearing a green coat, hair loose around her shoulders. Different from the armored woman at the parole hearing. Softer. More vulnerable. You came, she said. Did you think I wouldn't? I thought you might wake up and realize this is insane. I did wake up. I still came. We walked along the river path. Not touching. Not quite close enough to touch. But aware of each other in a way that felt electric. Tell me something about Claire, she said. Something that wasn't in the obituary. I hadn't expected that. Why? Because I want to know who she was. Not the victim. The person. I thought about it. Most people wanted me to stop talking about Claire. To move on. To let her rest. No one had ever asked me to bring her back to life with words. She couldn't whistle, I said. She tried for years. She'd pucker her lips and blow and nothing would come out except this sad little hissing sound. She was so frustrated by it. She said it was her one flaw. Elena smiled. Her one flaw was that she couldn't whistle? That's what she claimed. I told her she also couldn't parallel park and she threw a pillow at my head. Could she? Parallel park? God no. She once spent 15 minutes trying to fit into a space that could have held a bus. I had to get out and guide her. She was furious. Didn't speak to me for an hour. I was smiling. When had I started smiling? She sounds wonderful, Elena said. She was. I'm sorry you lost her. I'm sorry too. We stopped at a bench overlooking the water. Sat down. Close enough now that our shoulders almost touched. Tell me something about you, I said. Something true. She was quiet for a moment. I haven't let anyone see me cry since the night Daniel was arrested. Not Marcus. Not my parents. Not anyone. Why? Because if I start, I'm afraid I won't stop. I'll just dissolve into tears and never come back. Maybe that's not the worst thing. Easy for you to say. It's not easy for me to say anything. I've been numb for 18 months. You're the first person I've actually really talked to, since she died. She turned to look at me. Her eyes were wet. Why me? I don't know. Maybe because you don't expect me to be okay. Everyone else looks at me like I should be healing by now. Moving on. You look at me like you understand that some things don't heal. They just become part of you. A tear slipped down her cheek. She wiped it away quickly. I wasn't lying at the hearing, she said. I do feel responsible. Not legally. Not logically. But somewhere deep down, in a place I can't argue with, I feel like I should have known. Should have seen it. Should have stopped him. You couldn't have. I know. But the guilt doesn't care about logic. I reached over and took her hand. She stiffened. Then relaxed. We sat there on that bench, holding hands like teenagers, watching the river slide past. Neither of us spoke. Neither of us needed to. After that, the park became our place. We met there 3 times that first week. Then 4 times the next. Then every day, rain or shine, for an hour before she had to pick up Marcus from school. We walked. We talked. We sat on our bench and watched the seasons change around us. She told me about her childhood. Strict parents, Catholic school, a brief rebellion in college that ended when she met Daniel at a business conference and decided to become respectable. She'd been 23. He'd been 28. He seemed so solid, she said. So certain of who he was and where he was going. I was young enough to think certainty was the same as character, she said. I didn't know you could be absolutely sure of yourself and still be completely hollow inside. I told her about Claire. About how we met in a bookstore, both reaching for the same copy of a novel neither of us ended up liking. About our first date at a terrible Italian restaurant where the waiter spilled wine on her dress and she laughed so hard she snorted. About the proposal, nothing fancy, just me and her on the couch on a Sunday morning, and I looked at her in her ratty bathrobe with coffee breath and bedhead and thought, I want this forever. She said yes before I finished asking. I said. She said she'd been waiting for me to figure it out. Elena squeezed my hand. She knew. Knew what? That you were the kind of man worth waiting for. I looked at her. Really looked. The afternoon light caught her face, softened the lines around her eyes, made her look younger somehow. Or maybe not younger, just less guarded. Less defended. Elena. Don't, she said quietly. Don't what? Don't say whatever you're about to say. Not yet. I'm not ready. How do you know what I was going to say? Because you're looking at me the way I've been trying not to look at you for 3 weeks. My heart was pounding. And how's that? Like I'm something you want. Something real. And I don't know how to be wanted anymore, Jonah. I don't know if I'm capable of it. I spent 16 years with a man who wanted the idea of me, the wife, the mother, the respectable life. I don't know if anyone has ever wanted the actual me. I want the actual you. You don't even know me. Then let me. She pulled her hand away. Stood up from the bench. I have to pick up Marcus. Elena. I'll see you tomorrow. She walked away fast, almost running. I sat there and watched her disappear around the bend in the path. That night I dreamed about Claire. We were in our old kitchen, the one in the apartment we'd shared before she died. She was making pancakes the way she did every Sunday. I was sitting at the table watching her. You're falling for her, Claire said. Not accusing. Just stating a fact. I don't know what I'm doing. She flipped a pancake. Perfect golden brown. Yes, you do. You just don't want to admit it because you think it means letting go of me. Doesn't it? She turned around. Looked at me with those eyes I'd loved for 8 years. Jonah. I'm dead. I've been dead for 18 months. And you've been dead too, just walking around pretending to be alive. If she makes you feel something again, that's not a betrayal. That's a gift. She's connected to him. To the man who. I know who she is. I also know who she isn't. She isn't Daniel. She isn't the car. She isn't that night. She's just a person who got hurt by the same thing that hurt you. I woke up crying. The pillow was wet. My chest was heaving. I hadn't cried since the funeral, hadn't been able to. The tears had been stuck somewhere deep inside, frozen, unreachable. Now they wouldn't stop. I lay there in the dark and sobbed for everything I'd lost. For Claire. For the life we'd planned. For the children we talked about having. For the future that got erased in a single instant by a man who'd had too much to drink and not enough conscience to call a cab. And somewhere in the middle of all that grief I felt something else. Permission. Claire had given me permission. In the dream or in my imagination or in whatever part of my brain still held on to her, she told me it was okay to feel again. I didn't know if I believed in signs or messages from beyond or any of that, but I knew what I felt. I wanted Elena, and I was done pretending I didn't. I got to the park early the next morning. She was already there, sitting on our bench, waiting. When she saw me coming, she stood up. Her face was impossible to read. "I shouldn't have run away yesterday," she said. "It's okay." "It's not. I was scared. I'm still scared. But I've been thinking all night and—" I kissed her. I didn't plan it. Didn't think about it. One second she was talking, the next second my hands were on her face and my lips were on hers and she was kissing me back like she'd been waiting for this just as long as I had. When we finally pulled apart, we were both breathing hard. "I dreamed about Claire last night," I said. She told me it was okay. Elena's eyes were wide. "You dreamed about your dead wife and she gave you permission to kiss me? I know how it sounds. It sounds insane. Is that a problem?" She stared at me for a long moment. Then she laughed, a real laugh, full and warm and alive. "No," she said. "I think sanity is overrated anyway." She pulled me back down and kissed me again. The river moved past. The wind scattered leaves around our feet. Somewhere in the distance, a church bell rang. And for the first time in 18 months, I didn't feel dead inside. I felt terrified and guilty and confused and alive. Mostly alive. We were careful at first. Different coffee shops. Different times. Never holding hands where someone might see. We told ourselves it was about privacy. Two people figuring things out, no need to invite the world's opinions. But I knew the truth. We were hiding because what we had didn't make sense to anyone but us. For 3 weeks it worked. Stolen hours between her freelance deadlines and my classes. Texts that said nothing and everything. A kiss goodbye in her car, parked in the back corner of empty lots. Then the grocery store happened. I was reaching for pasta sauce when I heard my name. "Jonah?" I turned. Linda Marsh, fellow English teacher, professional gossip, the kind of woman who knew everyone's business before they knew it themselves. Her eyes moved past me to Elena, who was standing 3 feet away holding a jar of olives. "Oh," Linda said. The single syllable carried a novel's worth of meaning. "I didn't know you two were friends." "We're not," I said too quickly. "I mean, we just ran into each other." Linda smiled the way a cat smiles at a wounded bird. "Of course. Small town." She looked at Elena. "You're Marcus Mercer's mother, aren't you? I think I've seen you at school events." Elena's face went carefully blank. "That's right." "Terrible thing what happened with your husband." "Ex-husband, I mean." Linda's voice dripped false sympathy. "And Mr. Whitmore here lost his wife in that same accident, didn't he? What a coincidence, running into each other like this." The air turned to ice. "Small town," I repeated. Linda bought her groceries and left. But I saw her pull out her phone before she even reached her car. The whispers started the next day. I felt them before I heard them. Conversations that stopped when I entered the teacher's lounge, glances that slid away when I looked up. By Wednesday, someone had left an anonymous note in my mailbox. "Does her bed smell like her ex-husband's guilt?" I crumpled it and threw it away. But the word stayed with me. Thursday, Principal Coleman called me into his office. "Jonah, I'm not going to pretend I don't know what's going on. It's a small town. People talk. There's nothing to talk about. That's not what I'm hearing." He leaned back in his chair. "Look, I'm not here to judge your personal life. But Elena Mercer's son is a student at this school. Your student. You see how that looks. Marcus isn't in any of my classes this semester. Doesn't matter. The optics. The optics." I stood up. "My wife is dead. Elena's marriage was destroyed by the same man who killed her. We found something in each other that helps us survive. And you want to talk to me about optics?" Coleman raised his hands. "I'm on your side, Jonah. I'm just warning you, not everyone will be." That night, I told Elena about the conversation. We were parked at the overlook outside town, the place teenagers went to make out and adults went to avoid being seen. The irony wasn't lost on me. "Maybe we should stop," she said quietly. "Take a break. Let the gossip die down. Is that what you want?" "No." Her voice cracked. "But I've lived through scandal once. I know what it does. The way people look at you. The way they talk about you like you're not even human. I don't know if I can survive it again. You survived, Daniel. You survived the trial. You survived raising Marcus alone while the whole world judged you for crimes you didn't commit. This is different. How? She turned to face me. In the darkness, I could barely see her expression. Because this time I actually have something to lose. I reached for her. Pulled her close. So do I said into her hair. And I'm not letting go. She held on to me like I was the only solid thing in a world that kept shifting beneath her feet. People are going to hate us, she whispered. Some people already do. That's not new. What if it gets worse? Then we get through it together. She pulled back and looked at me. You really believe that? I believe that I spent 18 months feeling nothing. And now I feel everything. If that comes with a cost, I'll pay it. She kissed me, hard, desperate, like she was trying to memorize the shape of my mouth. Okay, she said when we broke apart. Okay. Together. We stopped hiding after that. Not aggressively, we didn't make announcements or hold hands at school events. But we stopped pretending we were strangers when we ran into each other in public. Stopped taking separate cars to the same places. Stopped lying. Some people surprised me with kindness. The woman at the bakery smiled when she saw us together and gave us extra muffins. An older man at the hardware store shook my hand and said, "Good for you, son. Life's too short." Others surprised me with cruelty. Someone keyed Elena's car. The word whore scratched into the driver's side door in jagged letters. She didn't cry when she saw it. Just took a photo for insurance and drove to the body shop. It's just paint, she said when I tried to apologize. They can't touch what actually matters. But I saw the way her hands shook when she filled out the claim form. I saw the toll this was taking even if she refused to name it. And I started to wonder how much more we could take before something broke. Marcus found out on a Saturday. Elena had invited me over for dinner, a first. She'd been nervous all week, changing the menu 3 times, worrying about whether it was too soon, whether Marcus would be uncomfortable, whether we were moving too fast. He knows I'm seeing someone, she'd said. He just doesn't know who. I arrived at 6 with a bottle of wine and a knot in my stomach. Marcus was sitting on the couch when I walked in. 15 years old, lanky, with his father's sandy hair and his mother's guarded eyes. He looked up from his phone and froze. Mom? His voice was flat. Why is my English teacher in our house? Elena stepped forward. Marcus, this is Jonah. We've been spending time together. I wanted you to meet him properly. Meet him properly. Marcus stood up slowly. You're dating Mr. Whitmore? Yes. He looked at me, then at her, then back at me. Does he know? About Dad? He knows. Something shifted in Marcus's face. A hardening. Wait. He stepped closer to me. Whitmore. I know that name. There was a woman at the trial? Marcus. Claire Whitmore. That was her name. The woman Dad. He stopped. The color drained from his face. Holy shit. Holy shit. You're her husband? I said quietly. The room went silent. I could hear the clock ticking on the wall, the hum of the refrigerator, my own heartbeat pounding in my ears. Mom? Marcus's voice cracked. What the hell is wrong with you? Marcus, please? Dad killed his wife. Dad killed his wife and you're sleeping with him? It's not like that. Then what is it like? Explain it to me. Because from where I'm standing, this is the most fucked up thing I've ever heard. Elena reached for him. He jerked away. Don't touch me. Marcus, I know this is confusing. Confusing? He laughed, an ugly, broken sound. My dad is in prison. My whole life fell apart. Everyone at school knows who I am, knows what my father did. And now my mom is dating the victim's husband? What is this, some kind of sick joke? We didn't plan this, I said. We didn't choose. I'm not talking to you. Marcus turned on me, eyes blazing. You don't get to talk to me. You don't get to stand in my house and pretend like this is normal. My dad made a mistake. A mistake. The word came out sharper than I intended. He killed someone. He got drunk and got behind the wheel and killed my wife. And you think I don't know that? You think I don't think about it every single day? Tears were streaming down his face now. He's still my dad. He's still my dad and I love him and I hate him and I don't know how to feel about anything anymore. And now you're here in my house kissing my mom and I'm supposed to be okay with that. No one's asking you to be okay with it, Elena said softly. I'm just asking you to try to understand. I can't. He wiped his face with the back of his hand. I can't understand this. I don't want to understand this. He grabbed his jacket from the back of the couch. Marcus, where are you going? Out. It's dark. I don't care. The door slammed behind him. The sound echoed through the house like a gunshot. Elena stood in the middle of the living room, arms wrapped around herself, tears falling silently. I should go, I said. Jonah. He needs you right now. Not me. I'm the problem. You're not the problem. I'm the reminder. Every time he looks at me, he sees what his father did. That's not something I can fix. She didn't argue. We both knew I was right. I left without kissing her goodbye. It felt like leaving a piece of myself behind. She called the next morning. He came home around midnight. Didn't say anything. Went straight to his room. Is he okay? I don't know. I don't know anything anymore. Her voice was hollow. Jonah, I think we need to stop. The words hit like a blade between my ribs. Elena. I can't choose you over my son. I won't. He's already lost his father. If he feels like he's losing me too, you're not choosing me over him. This isn't an either or. It is to him. Right now, that's exactly what it is. I closed my eyes, pressed the phone hard against my ear. So what are you saying? I'm saying I need to put Marcus first. I'm saying I can't keep building something with you while my son falls apart. I'm saying, her voice broke. I'm saying I need you to let me go. For how long? Silence. I don't know. I wanted to fight, to argue, to tell her we could figure this out together. But I thought about Marcus, 15 years old, caught between love for a father who destroyed lives and rage at that same father for the destruction. Watching his mother find happiness with the one person who represented everything his family had lost. How could I ask her to choose me over that? Okay, I said. The word tasted like ash. Okay. If this is what you need, I'll give you space. But Elena, I paused, making sure she heard me. I'm not disappearing. I'm not pretending the last 2 months didn't happen. When you're ready, if you're ever ready, I'll be here. She was crying. I could hear it even though she was trying to hide it. I'm sorry, Jonah. Don't be. You're being a good mother. That's not something to apologize for. It doesn't feel like being good. It feels like being torn in half. I know. I'm sorry too. She hung up. I sat on the edge of my bed, phone in my hand, and felt the numbness creeping back in. The fog I'd been fighting for 18 months rolling in from the edges. I'd finally found something worth living for. And now it was gone. The first week was the hardest. I kept reaching for my phone to text her. Kept driving past the park without meaning to. Kept waking up at 3 a.m. with her name on my lips and nothing but darkness to answer. I went back to the motions. Teaching. Grading. Eating food I couldn't taste. The fog rolled in thick and heavy and I let it. Fighting felt pointless. At school I saw Marcus in the hallway sometimes. He never looked at me. Just walked past like I was invisible, which was better than the alternative, I told myself. Better than hatred. Linda Marsh cornered me in the teacher's lounge on day 9. I heard you and the Mercer woman called it quits. Such a shame. Her voice was syrup over broken glass. Probably for the best, though. Some things just aren't meant to be. I walked away without responding. If I opened my mouth, I'd say something that would cost me my job. 3 weeks in, I visited Claire's grave. I hadn't been since before the parole hearing. The grass had grown up around the headstone. I knelt down and pulled the weeds away one by one until the marble was clean. I met someone, I said out loud. The words felt strange in the cold air. You probably already know that. If you're anywhere. If any part of you is still. I stopped. Swallowed. She's gone now. I let her go. I don't know if that was the right thing or the coward's thing. I don't know the difference anymore. A bird called somewhere in the trees. The wind moved through the empty cemetery. I'm tired, Claire. I'm so goddamn tired of feeling like I'm drowning in 3 feet of water. Like everyone else figured out how to stand up and I forgot how. I pressed my palm against the cold stone. I miss you. I'll always miss you. But I think, my voice cracked. I think I was starting to live again. With her. And I don't know if I can go back to just surviving. No answer. There never was. I stayed until the sun went down. Then I drove home to my empty apartment and sat in the dark until I fell asleep on the couch. The email came on a Tuesday. Subject, can we talk? Mr. Whitmore. I know you probably don't want to hear from me, but I need to say some things. Can you meet me after school tomorrow? I'll be in the library until 4. Marcus. I read it 6 times. My first instinct was to delete it. Whatever Marcus wanted to say, I wasn't sure I could handle it. Another confrontation. More accusations. More reminders of everything I'd lost. But something made me pause. He'd reached out. Not his mother, him. That meant something. I typed back, "I'll be there." The library was empty when I arrived. Marcus was sitting at a table in the back corner, hunched over a book he clearly wasn't reading. He looked up when he heard my footsteps. His face was harder to read than his mother's. "You came," he said. "You asked." I sat down across from him. The silence stretched between us, thick and uncomfortable. "I've been thinking," he finally said. "About you. About my mom. About all of it." "Okay." I was angry. I'm still angry. But, he stopped. Started again. "My therapist says anger is usually a mask for something else. Fear usually. Or sadness." "Your therapist sounds smart." "She's okay." He almost smiled. Almost. She asked me what I was really afraid of. And I didn't want to answer, but she just sat there waiting, and eventually I said it. "What did you say?" He looked down at the table. "I said I was afraid that if my mom moved on, it meant everything with my dad was really over. Like officially. No chance of things going back to how they were." "Things can't go back, Marcus. Even if your mom and I never happened." "I know. I know that now." He met my eyes. "But knowing something and feeling it are different." I understood that better than he could possibly realize. "There's something else," he said. "Something I need to tell you." "I'm listening." "My mom cries at night. She thinks I can't hear her, but I can. Walls are thin." He paused. "She cried every night for the first year after my dad went away. Then it got less. Then she met you and it stopped." My chest tightened. "These past 3 weeks it started again. Every night. And I realized," his voice wavered, "I realized I did that. I made her choose and she chose me, and now she's miserable. And I'm supposed to feel good about that? I'm supposed to feel like I won? You didn't do anything wrong. You were hurting. You reacted. I made my mom give up the first good thing she's had in years. How is that not wrong? Because you're 15. Because your whole world got ripped apart and you're still figuring out how to put it back together. You don't have to have all the answers yet." He was quiet for a long moment. "Do you love her?" The question hung in the air. "Yes." "Like really love her? Not just because you're both sad and broken?" "I love her because she's brave. Because she stood up in that hearing and told the truth when it would have been easier to stay silent. Because she makes me feel like I can survive this. Not forget it, survive it." Marcus nodded slowly. "She talks about you, you know. When she thinks I'm not paying attention. Your name comes up and her whole face changes." "Marcus, I'm not saying I'm okay with this. I'm not saying it doesn't still feel weird and messed up. But," he took a breath, "I don't want to be the reason she's alone forever. I don't want that on me." "What are you saying?" He stood up, gathered his backpack. "I'm saying maybe you should call her. I'm saying maybe I was wrong." He walked toward the door. Stopped. "She stopped crying when you were around. That has to mean something, right?" Then he was gone. I sat in the empty library, heart pounding, Marcus's words echoing in my head. "She stopped crying when you were around." I pulled out my phone. I didn't call. Calling felt wrong. Too easy. Too distant. After everything we'd been through, Elena deserved more than a voice on a phone. I drove to her house. It was almost dark when I pulled into her driveway. The lights were on inside, kitchen, living room. I could see her silhouette moving past the window. I sat in the car for 5 minutes trying to figure out what to say. Every version sounded wrong. Too desperate. Too casual. Too much like a man who didn't understand what he was asking for. Finally, I just got out and walked to the door. She answered on the second knock. Her hair was pulled back in a messy knot. No makeup. Sweatshirt and jeans. She looked exhausted, dark circles under her eyes, shoulders hunched like she was carrying something too heavy. She looked beautiful. "Jonah." My name came out like a breath she'd been holding. "What are you doing here?" "Marcus came to see me." Her eyes widened. "He what?" "Today. After school. He told me." I paused. "He told me you've been crying at night." She closed her eyes. A tear slipped down her cheek. "He wasn't supposed to know that. He knows. And he feels responsible. And he told me that he doesn't want to be the reason you're alone. He's 15. He doesn't get to decide." "No. He doesn't. You do." I stepped closer. "Elena, I'm not here because Marcus gave me permission. I'm here because I can't keep pretending that walking away was the right thing. I tried. For 3 weeks I tried to go back to the fog, back to the numbness. I can't do it anymore. Not after knowing what it feels like to be awake. She was crying openly now, not hiding it, not wiping the tears away. I don't know how to do this, she whispered. I don't know how to choose myself without feeling like I'm failing him. You're not failing him. You're showing him what it looks like to live, to take a chance on something even when it's terrifying. That's not failure, that's the bravest thing a parent can do. What if he never accepts it? What if this tears us apart? Then we deal with it, together. I'm not asking you for a guarantee, Elena. I'm asking you for a chance. She stood in the doorway trembling. The space between us felt like a canyon. I'm scared, she said. So am I. I don't want to hurt Marcus. Neither do I. I don't want to hurt you. You won't. You don't know that. You're right. I don't. But I know that the last 3 weeks without you were worse than anything I've felt since Claire died. I know that when I'm with you, I remember what it feels like to want a future. I know that I love you and I think you love me, and I'm done letting fear make our decisions. She stared at me for a long moment. I could see the war behind her eyes, every reason to say no fighting against every reason to say yes. Then she reached out, grabbed the front of my jacket and pulled me inside. The door closed behind us. She kissed me like she was drowning and I was air. Like 3 weeks had been 3 years. Like she'd been holding herself together with string and tape, and the moment she touched me, she could finally fall apart. I love you, she said against my mouth. I love you and I hate that I love you and I can't stop. Then don't. It's not that simple. It's exactly that simple. She pulled back, looked at me with those dark eyes that had seen too much and survived anyway. What do we do now? We figure it out. One day at a time. Together. And Marcus? We give him space. We don't force anything. We let him see that this isn't about replacing his father or erasing the past. It's about building something new. What if he can't accept it? Then we keep trying. We keep showing up. We keep loving him even when he pushes us away. That's what family does. She laughed, a broken, beautiful sound. Family. God, what a mess we are. The best families usually are. She leaned her forehead against my chest. I wrapped my arms around her and held on. Outside, the streetlights flickered on. A car drove past. The world kept moving, indifferent to the two broken people standing in a doorway, holding each other like they'd finally found solid ground. Stay, she whispered. For how long? I don't know. Tonight. Tomorrow. As long as you want. I tilted her chin up, looked into her eyes. Then I'll stay forever. She smiled. The first real smile I'd seen on her face in weeks. Forever is a long time. I know. I'm counting on it. 1 year later. I proposed on a Tuesday morning. Nothing fancy. She was making coffee in my kitchen, our kitchen now, and the light was coming through the window in a way that made her look like something from a painting. I got down on one knee right there on the tile floor, still in my boxers, holding a ring I'd bought 3 months earlier and carried everywhere since. She said yes before I finished asking. You're supposed to let me do this speech, I said. I've heard your speeches. They go on forever. She pulled me up and kissed me. Yes. 1,000 times yes. Marcus was my best man. Took time to get there. Months of awkward dinners and careful conversations, and 2 steps forward, 1 step back. He didn't magically accept me. He struggled. Some days he was warm, almost friendly. Other days he barely looked at me. But he kept showing up. And so did I. The night I asked his permission to marry his mother, we sat on the back porch drinking root beer. He was still 2 years away from anything stronger, and I told him the truth. I'm not trying to be your father. I'm not trying to replace anyone. I just love your mom and I want to spend my life with her. But not if it means losing you. You're part of the deal, Marcus. The most important part. He was quiet for a long time. My dad called last week, he finally said. First time in 4 months. I waited. He asked about school. About basketball. Normal stuff. And then he asked if my mom was seeing anyone. What did you tell him? The truth. That she was happy. That she'd found someone good. Marcus looked at me. He didn't say anything for a while. Then he said, good. She deserves that. I didn't know what to say. I think he meant it, Marcus continued. I think somewhere in there, underneath all the excuses and the drinking and the things he won't admit, he actually wants her to be okay. That doesn't fix what he did. No, it doesn't. But it helps me understand that people are complicated. That you can do something unforgivable and still have parts of you that aren't all bad. He paused. My therapist says that's called holding 2 truths at once. Your therapist really is smart. Yeah. He almost smiled. She's okay. He gave me his blessing that night. Not enthusiastically, he was still a teenage boy and emotional declarations weren't his style. But he shook my hand and said, "Don't mess this up." I promised I wouldn't. The wedding was small. Backyard ceremony. 30 guests. Elena wore a simple white dress and flowers in her hair. I wore a suit I'd bought the week before and a tie Claire had given me for our anniversary, something borrowed, something that still mattered. Marcus walked his mother down the aisle. When he placed her hand in mine, he leaned in and whispered, "She's your problem now." Elena heard him and laughed. The sound echoed across the yard and I thought, this is what happiness sounds like. This is what I forgot existed. We visit Claire's grave together now. Not often. Not obsessively. But on the anniversary and sometimes on random Sundays when I need to talk to her, Elena comes with me. She brings flowers, always yellow roses, Claire's favorite, which I'd mentioned once and she'd never forgotten. She doesn't say much during these visits. Just stands beside me holding my hand, letting me have my grief without trying to fix it. Once I asked her if it was strange. Visiting the grave of my first wife with my second. "No," she said. "Claire is part of your story. Which means she's part of our story. I don't want to erase her. I want to honor her. Even though my ex-husband is the reason she's here?" Elena squeezed my hand. "Especially because of that. She deserves to be remembered by people who understand what was lost." I cried that day. Right there in the cemetery, with Elena's arms around me and Claire's headstone at my feet. I cried for everything, the loss, the guilt, the impossible gift of finding love again in the last place I ever expected. Some nights I still dream about Claire. Not sad dreams anymore. Not nightmares. Just memories, her laugh, her voice, the way she hummed off-key when she was cooking. I wake up from those dreams with tears on my face and a strange kind of peace in my chest. Elena never asks what I dreamed about. She just pulls me closer and holds on until my breathing steadies. She knows. She understands. That's the thing about loving someone who's been broken. They don't need explanations. They just need presence. Last month, Marcus got his college acceptance letters. For schools. Full scholarship to 2 of them. He's going to study psychology, wants to become a therapist like the one who helped him through the worst years of his life. "I want to help kids like me," he told us over dinner. Kids who are stuck between loving someone and hating what they did. Kids who think they have to choose. Elena cried. I pretended I had something in my eye. "You're going to be amazing," I told him. "I know," he said. Then softer, "Thanks for not giving up on us." This morning I woke up before the sun. Elena was still asleep, her hair spread across the pillow, one hand tucked under her cheek. I watched her breathe for a while. Just watched. Still amazed after everything that we made it here. The house was quiet. Marcus was away at a friend's and the world outside was still dark and hushed. I slipped out of bed and went to the kitchen to make coffee. On the windowsill there's a photo of Claire. Not hidden, not displayed like a shrine, just there, part of the landscape of our life. Next to it is a photo from our wedding, Elena and me laughing at something Marcus said. And next to that, a picture of Marcus at his graduation, grinning like he'd conquered the world. 3 photos. 3 pieces of a story that shouldn't make sense but somehow does. I poured my coffee and sat at the table, watching the sky lighten through the window. I used to think grief was something you got over. A mountain you climbed until you reached the other side. I know better now. Grief is something you carry. It gets lighter over time, but it never disappears completely. You just get stronger. Strong enough to hold it and still have room for joy. Elena came downstairs a few minutes later, sleepy-eyed and beautiful. She poured her own coffee and sat across from me. "You're up early." "Couldn't sleep." "Bad dreams?" "No. Good ones, actually." She reached across the table and took my hand. We sat there in the quiet morning light, not talking, not needing to. Just together. This is what I learned from losing Claire. This is what I learned from finding Elena. Love doesn't come once. It comes as many times as you're brave enough to let it. And the people who hurt us, even the ones who destroy everything, they don't get the final word. We do. We choose what comes next. We choose to stay, to fight, to build something new on top of the wreckage. We choose each other over and over, every single day. That's not forgetting. That's not betrayal. That's survival. And survival, I've learned, is just another word for hope.